The sound of a coffee mug shattering against tile echoed through the office break room. Tears welled in Catherine's eyes as she stared at Mark, her most dedicated employee. "I had no idea," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the office beyond the door. His answer to her casual question had just shattered her perception of his life as completely as the mug had broken at her feet. If this story already has you feeling something, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories like Mark's to life, stories that remind us of the hidden battles people fight every day. Mark Reynolds arrived at Horizon Marketing precisely at 7:15 a.m. every weekday morning, a full hour and 45 minutes before the office officially opened. The security guard, Hector, had long since stopped asking for his ID badge, instead greeting him with a sleepy nod and sometimes a paper cup of coffee from the lobby kiosk. "Morning, Mark. Beautiful day coming up," Hector said, sliding the coffee across his desk. "Thanks, Hector. Appreciate it." Mark's smile never quite reached his eyes, but it was genuine nonetheless. He took the elevator to the 14th floor, the gentle hum of the rising car the only sound accompanying his thoughts. The office was peaceful at this hour. No phones ringing, no keyboards clacking, no forced laughter at mediocre jokes. Just silence and the soft glow of morning light filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows that lined the eastern wall. Mark settled at his desk, arranging his workspace with methodical precision before opening his laptop. By 8:30, he'd already responded to 23 emails, drafted a proposal for a new client, and reviewed the analytics report that wouldn't be discussed until the afternoon meeting. When Catherine Mills, the company's marketing director and his direct supervisor, arrived at 8:45, Mark was already deep into his third task of the day. "You're making us all look bad, Reynolds," she joked, the same line she delivered at least twice a week. Her heels clicked against the hardwood as she approached his desk, designer handbag swinging from her forearm. "Just getting a head start," he replied, his standard response. Catherine paused, studying him with the analytical gaze that had helped her climb to director by 35. "Team dinner tonight at Vincenzo's. 7 o'clock. The Bradshaw account is officially ours, and we're celebrating." Mark's fingers stilled over his keyboard. "I appreciate the invitation, but I'll have to pass." "You pass on everything, Mark." Catherine's tone remained light, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "Happy hour, team lunches, holiday parties. You're the best account manager I've got, but you're like a ghost around here." "I just have other commitments." "Every single time?" Mark nodded, already turning back to his screen, a clear signal that he considered the conversation over. But Catherine didn't move. "Bring someone if you want. That new copywriter has been eyeing you, you know." "Melissa? The one with the vintage glasses and impressive vocabulary." A muscle twitched in Mark's jaw. "I'm not interested." "In Melissa specifically, or in dating anyone?" His voice was flat, final. Catherine leaned against his desk, crossing her arms. "Mark, you're 34, successful, and, forgive my unprofessional observation, objectively handsome. You haven't mentioned a partner in the 3 years you've worked here." "Not once." Mark's expression remained neutral, but his shoulders tensed visibly. "I'm not trying to pry," Catherine continued, softer now. "But as someone who considers you not just an employee but a friend, I worry. Why won't you date? Is everything okay?" The question hung in the air between them. For a moment, Mark seemed to consider brushing her off with his usual polite deflection. Instead, he closed his laptop and looked up at her, really looked at her, for perhaps the first time. "My daughter, Emma," he said quietly. "She's why." Emma Reynolds had been diagnosed with leukemia 2 weeks after her 5th birthday. Mark still remembered the princess-themed party they'd had in the park, Emma twirling in her purple dress, paper crown askew on her dark curls. His wife, Layla, had taken hundreds of photos, laughing as she tried to capture their daughter's perpetual motion. 13 days later, Emma developed a fever that wouldn't break. Bruises appeared on her arms and legs, bruises neither of them could explain. The pediatrician sent them to the hospital for blood work, just to be safe. Nothing had been safe since. The diagnosis came swiftly: acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Their world collapsed into hospital rooms, medical terminology, and the sickly sweet smell of antiseptic that never quite masked the underlying scent of fear. Layla had been strong at first, researching treatments, joining support groups, decorating Emma's hospital room with fairy lights and her favorite stuffed animals. But as weeks turned to months, as Emma's hair fell out in clumps on her pillow, as the chemotherapy ravaged her tiny body, something in Layla began to crack. "I can't do this," she whispered one night, standing in their kitchen at 3 a.m., staring blankly into an open refrigerator. "I can't watch her suffer like this. I can't be strong enough for both of you." Mark had pulled her into his arms, murmuring reassurances he didn't fully believe himself. "We'll get through this. Together. Emma needs us both." But 6 months into Emma's treatment, Mark came home from the hospital, where he'd spent the night in the uncomfortable recliner beside Emma's bed, to find Layla's closet half empty and a note on the kitchen counter. "I'm sorry. I love you both, but I'm drowning. I need to breathe. I'll call when I can. She never did. The divorce papers arrived 3 weeks later, delivered to the pediatric oncology floor where Mark had taken to practically living. The courier had looked embarrassed, shifting uncomfortably as Mark signed for the envelope with trembling hands. Emma had been asleep, her small body curled around the stuffed unicorn Layla had given her the day she was admitted. Mark sat beside her bed, reading the legal document that officially ended his marriage while monitoring the steady drip of chemicals flowing into his daughter's veins. That was 2 years ago. Emma was 8 now, in remission for the past 10 months. Her hair had grown back, darker and curlier than before. She'd returned to school part-time, though her immune system remained compromised. Every cough, every fever, every unexplained bruise sent ice through Mark's veins. He'd taken the job at Horizon specifically because it offered excellent health insurance and flexible hours. He worked harder than anyone, coming in early so he could leave by 5:30 to pick Emma up from her after-school program, never missing a deadline despite the constant undercurrent of anxiety that had become his permanent companion. Dating wasn't just low on his priority list, it wasn't on the list at all. "Emma is everything to me," Mark told Catherine, his voice steady despite the emotion behind his words. "Between work and taking care of her, there's nothing left. No time, no energy, no space in my life for anyone else." Catherine's expression softened. "I had no idea you were a father. I don't talk about my personal life at work." Clearly. She hesitated. "But Mark, single parents date all the time. It might actually be good for Emma to see you. Emma almost died." The words came out sharper than he intended. "Her mother couldn't handle it and left us both when Emma was 6 and still undergoing chemo. So no, I'm not interested in dating. I'm not interested in bringing someone into our lives who might decide we're too much to handle. I'm not interested in dividing my attention when every moment with my daughter feels borrowed." Catherine was silent, her earlier playfulness completely gone. "I'm sorry," Mark said after a moment. "That was more than you asked for." "No, I'm the one who should apologize. I've been pushing you to socialize, making assumptions." She straightened, professional mask sliding back into place. "The invitation to dinner stands, but I completely understand if you need to be with Emma." Mark nodded, grateful for the shift. "Thank you. And if you could keep what I told you between us." "Of course." Catherine turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, Mark, I think you're an incredible father." After she left, Mark sat motionless, staring at his closed laptop. He hadn't meant to reveal so much. In the 3 years at Horizon, he'd kept his personal life carefully separated from his professional one. His colleagues knew he left promptly at 5:30 each day, but he'd never explained why. They invited him to after-work functions, and he politely declined without elaboration. It was easier that way. Cleaner. He didn't want pity or special treatment. He just wanted to do his job well, earn his paycheck, maintain the insurance that covered Emma's ongoing care, and spend every possible moment with his daughter. That evening, Mark picked Emma up from Mrs. Gonzalez, their elderly neighbor who watched her after school 3 days a week. The other 2 days, Emma attended an art therapy program at the children's hospital where she'd received treatment. "Daddy." Emma launched herself at him the moment he stepped through Mrs. Gonzalez's door. Despite being 8, she was small for her age, a lingering effect of the chemotherapy that had saved her life while simultaneously stunting her growth. "Hey, sunshine." He caught her easily, swinging her up into a hug. Her legs wrapped around his waist, arms circling his neck. "How was school?" "We dissected owl pellets in science class and I found a whole mouse skeleton. Ms. Parker let me keep it in a special box." Her eyes, so like his own, sparkled with excitement. "That's wonderful," Mark managed, making a mental note to find an appropriate place for a mouse skeleton in their apartment. Mrs. Gonzalez appeared in the hallway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "She ate all her snack today," she reported with satisfaction. "And did her reading homework." "Thank you, Mrs. G. You're a lifesaver." Mark set Emma down so she could gather her backpack. The older woman waved away his thanks. "She is a joy. Will I see you tomorrow?" "Yes, same time." Mark helped Emma with her jacket, noting that the sleeves were getting too short. "Another growth spurt. Thank God." They walked the 3 blocks to their apartment building hand in hand, Emma chattering about her day, Mark drinking in every word. These moments, her hand in his, her voice animated and strong, her cheeks flushed with health rather than fever, these were the moments he lived for. Their apartment was modest but comfortable. 2 bedrooms, a combined living and dining area, a small kitchen with a breakfast bar where they ate most of their meals. Mark had painted Emma's room herself, a soft lavender that she'd selected from dozens of paint samples. Glow-in-the-dark stars dotted her ceiling, arranged in actual constellations that they'd researched together during a long hospital stay. "Spaghetti or breakfast for dinner?" Mark asked as they entered, hanging their jackets on the hooks by the door. "Breakfast," Emma declared, already heading to her room to change out of her school uniform. Mark smiled, pulling eggs and milk from the refrigerator. Breakfast for dinner was their Tuesday tradition, a small ritual that had begun during Emma's treatment when her appetite was unpredictable and pancakes were one of the few foods she could tolerate. As he whisked the eggs, his phone buzzed with a text. "Catherine. Missed you at dinner. Team sends their best. The Bradshaw presentation is yours if you want it. Big opportunity, but I understand if the timing isn't right with Emma, *. Mark stared at the message. The Bradshaw account was huge, a national retail chain looking to revamp their entire marketing strategy. Leading the project would mean a substantial bonus, possibly even a promotion. It would also mean longer hours, potential travel, less time with Emma. "Daddy, can I have chocolate chips in my pancakes?" Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway, now dressed in leggings and an oversized sweatshirt emblazoned with a unicorn. Mark set his phone down. "Half chocolate chips, half blueberries. Deal?" She pretended to consider this, tapping her chin thoughtfully. "Deal. Can I help?" "Absolutely. Wash your hands and you can mix the batter." As Emma stood on her step stool at the counter, tongue poking out in concentration as she stirred, Mark felt the familiar ache in his chest, love so intense it was almost painful. He'd make it work. He'd find a way to take on the Bradshaw account without sacrificing his time with Emma. He'd work after she went to bed, wake up even earlier, bring work home if necessary. The bonus would go straight into her college fund, a future he refused to stop planning for, even during the darkest days of her illness. Later, after dinner and homework, after Emma's bath and 2 bedtime stories, she'd negotiated a second one with the skill of a seasoned diplomat. Mark sat on the edge of her bed, smoothing her damp curls away from her forehead. "Daddy," she said sleepily, "Zoe from school asked why I don't have a mommy who picks me up sometimes like she does." Mark's hand stilled. "What did you tell her?" "I said I have you, and you're enough." Her eyes were already drifting closed. "Is that okay?" Mark swallowed hard against the sudden tightness in his throat. "That's more than okay, sunshine." "Good." She yawned. "Because I don't need anyone else. Just you." After she fell asleep, Mark stood in her doorway, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. Just 3 years ago, he'd stood in a similar doorway in the oncology ward, listening to the beep of monitors, watching for any sign of distress, terrified to look away even for a moment. He pulled out his phone and responded to Catherine's text. "I'll take the Bradshaw account. Thank you for the opportunity. See you tomorrow, The next morning, Mark arrived at the office at his usual time, but something felt different. As he settled at his desk, Catherine appeared with 2 cups of coffee. "I figured if you're here this early, you could use this." She set 1 cup beside his laptop. "It's just black. I realized I don't even know how you take your coffee. Black is perfect." "Thank you." Mark accepted the cup with a nod. Catherine didn't leave. Instead, she perched on the edge of his desk, much as she had the day before. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday." Mark tensed. "I'd rather not discuss." "Just hear me out," she interrupted gently. "The Bradshaw account is going to require some travel. Normally I'd send you to Chicago for the initial meetings, but I'm thinking we could do most of it virtually. And for the sessions that absolutely require in-person attendance, I could go." Mark stared at her. "That's not necessary. I can handle it." "I know you can. But you shouldn't have to choose between advancing your career and being there for Emma." She sipped her coffee. "I lost my father to cancer when I was 12. He was a workaholic, always at the office, always on calls. When he got sick, it happened fast. 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. I barely saw him those last months because he was determined to provide for my future right up until the end." Mark didn't know what to say. In 3 years, this was the most personal information Catherine had ever shared. "What I'm trying to say," she continued, "is that time is precious. The work will always be here. The Bradshaw account will be a success with or without you on a plane to Chicago. But Emma only gets 1 childhood, and she needs her father present for it." "I appreciate that," Mark said carefully. "But I don't want special treatment." Catherine laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Mark, you arrive 2 hours early every day. You never take lunch breaks. Your productivity metrics are consistently 30% above everyone else's. You've earned some flexibility." Before Mark could respond, she stood. "The team meeting is at 10. I'll expect a draft of your strategy for Bradshaw by then." As she walked away, Mark felt something shift inside him, a loosening of the rigid boundaries he'd constructed between his personal and professional lives. It was uncomfortable, this new vulnerability, but also strangely freeing. Over the next few weeks, a new routine emerged. Mark still arrived early, but Catherine was often there too, ready with coffee and questions about Emma. He found himself sharing small details. Emma's fascination with owl pellets had evolved into a broader interest in biology. She'd joined a children's choir at the community center. Her latest scan had come back clear, another milestone in her recovery. The Bradshaw project progressed smoothly. Mark led the strategy development from New York while Catherine handled the client meetings in Chicago. The team rallied around the arrangement without question, perhaps sensing that something had changed, though none of them knew exactly what. One Friday afternoon, as